Please put your video off, have your listening compass. Let's see what happens in this conversation with Graham. So thank you so much, Graham, for volunteering. I really appreciate it. So accountability. So what are your best hopes? We've got about 10 minutes now. What are your best hopes from this conversation around helping your team be accountable?
I think my ultimate aim is to have everybody at the same level of personal responsibility and accountability. So if I see something, that's how I react. That's how the next person. So there's a harmonisation of where we are, because at the moment it's all over the place.
Okay. And how many are in your team? What sort of scope?
In the business, so the site where I'm sat at the moment, we're seasonal, but probably 30 or 40. I've got a few other sites which I will need to visit as well. So total is about 70 people.
Wow. So a big team that you influence,
Yeah.
You know, and you want that same level of accountability for all.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like responsibility and accountability. Is that?
Yes.
How you
Well, I think probably if I probably need to focus up at the top. Yeah, I would use the word leaders, but
Okay.
I'm not sure that the leaders are there. So that's where I need to aim at. Yeah, I need the exec group to be the ones who own it and are accountable to themselves and each other, and then it will trickle down from there.
Okay. It's a good place to start, focusing on the top exec, because they model the behavior, don't they?
That's the theory, yes.
Yes. So if this conversation's useful, Graham, and you walk out with achieving what you want to achieve in terms of how do you focus on the top exec in terms of taking accountability, what would be a sign that you've got that?
I think probably a visible sign will be to see those group of people out engaging, not just sat in their office behind their computers, but out engaging with the frontline workers, having conversations with them, and finding out what their challenges are, and then I suppose coming up with agreed actions and then implementing them. So not just talking the talk, but actually giving some hard, measurable answers. Because I think that's something that I've come in and found that there's a lot of legacy issues where there's been a lot of promises made and not delivered. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, what's the point? Nothing will happen. So if I can get the leaders to actually hold themselves account, make a promise and keep it, that'll be a very visible outcome.
And what difference would that make if you were to see that happening, where the top executives are agreeing to actions and making a promise to follow through on this? What difference will that make?
Key one probably is the silo mentality. So we've got a them and us, not just between managers and workers, but between sites with different departments. It's all me, me, me. I think that will very quickly help to break down that. Yeah, we're all here to do the same thing, guys. We work for the same business. We're ultimately here to make money so that we can pay ourselves and stay safe.
Okay. Awesome. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being is all execs are taking responsibility and agreeing to actions and promising to follow through, and it's happening. You're seeing this happening, and it's amazing. It's a 10. And a 1 is not really much evidence of any of that. Where would you place it today?
The group, probably a 4, maybe a 5. I think a couple of individuals will be higher and some will be lower, but 4 or 5 is probably a realistic average.
And how have you done that? Get them to a 4 or a 5 out of 10? What seemed to work in the past?
I think I'd probably say that one or two naturally are doing more themselves. They're already in that position. A couple, I think it's me just going and saying, right, come on, we're going for a walk. Get off your ass and come out with me. We're doing it. So actually being fairly blunt and forceful,
Ah,
and not
and
taking,
what
I've got
difference
time
does
for that.
that make when you go for a walk with them? What difference does that make?
To them, I think it's okay, maybe we need to do this.
Ah,
It's getting rid of the block that, I haven't got time for this. Well, actually, you need to make time. Yeah, I can put something in the diary and you'll come up with an excuse. But I'm stood in front of you saying, what are your blocks now? It's very hard to say, yeah. It's a lot easier
right.
to say, okay, come on then, let's go.
Right. So taking them for a walk seems to work,
Yeah.
in terms of them talking about their blocks. Is that how it works?
Yeah, and I think actually going out and seeing that, or maybe I should be doing this more often.
Ah.
Um,
So you're actually modeling. Help me understand these walks that you go on with them. What actually happens in the walks?
So, as a safety manager, I prefer not to just sit behind my computer and write procedures. Because in my
Ah,
mind, that doesn't help anyone. We go out
ah,
and talk to people to find out what the real blocks are. Um, so there are a lot of legacy issues which people have almost given up on. Yeah, what's the point of raising an issue? Because it'll never get dealt with.
mm,
Because the senior people haven't been out there. They sit in their desk, read a report, and that's it,
right,
rather than actually going out and speaking to people
right.
as people, not just, numbers. Uh,
Yeah,
so having that personal touch does make a difference.
yes. And it seems like you're modeling that personal a
It's what
touch.
I'm trying to do. It's
Yeah.
some of the questions that are asked, and again, I will put my hands up guilty. How you ask a question can get very different answers.
That's right. So when you ask a question that gets a positive response or a progress response, what questions are you asking?
It's always open ones. So
Okay.
it's never I've got senior manager out here today. He's never seen this process. Talk us through it. Tell us what you do. What are the challenges you faces every day? What fixes might we be able to help you with?
Okay.
And then try and, but yeah, there's always going to be positives and negatives, but focus on the positive. Yeah. What's succeeding here? What are you doing that works that we might be able to take into a different department?
Ah, okay. Okay. So they're actually seeing you do this when you're asking them for input.
That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, lead by example.
Yeah, love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, Graham, if you were to move it to a 5 or a 6, and more of these execs are uh, taking responsibility and more accountable and, agreeing to actions and, making a promise and following through. If more of them were doing it, what would be a sign that you're making progress on this if it was to move to a 5 or a 6?
Or even higher. Not me going and knocking on the door standing, but me to be able to watch in the office and see one of them going to another one of them saying, right, come on, I've got half an hour free now. Let's go for a walk. Let's go and have a chat with someone. So it's not
So,
me going prod, prod, prod. It's them going,
right,
actually, we know what we're doing. We know we need to do it. Let's go and do it.
yeah. So how have you done that where they don't need the prod anymore?
I'm
They've
not
just
there yet.
taken
I'm not
you
there
know.
yet. No,
But
that's where we're
suppose
going.
you were really make a difference, really influencing things. What would have you have done a little bit of, or to actually support that taking responsibility? If you just the small signs from the 4 or 5 to a 5 or a 6, what would have been your role in that to help that take up?
I wonder if when I'm out one-on-one, when we're walking to wherever we're going, we have a chat about, you and I doing this right now. How much better would it be? What would the message be stronger if the frontline people didn't see, oh, here comes the safety manager and someone else, if it was actually, oh shit, look, there's the CFO and the ops manager. That will probably, no, I think that would get some tongues wagging. So how do I get them to, for those people, rather than me going and say, right, Dor, you and you, come on, we're going. If I have those chats when we're out there walking and suggest that, why don't you and Fred go for one next week and see what happens?
Yeah.
Just that
Yeah.
suggestion. If they don't do it, do I put them on the spot and go, come on, guys, we talked about it. You said you were going to do it. You haven't done. What can I do to help facilitate?
Okay.
What I don't want to do is end up having to do it all myself, because that's what I'm trying to get away from, is that I don't do the do. I'm there to support you, but you're the ones that need to do it.
Okay. So what might be a really small step you might take, Graham, just to kickstart you moving from the 4 or 5 to the 5 or 6? A really small step you could take in the next 48 hours. What might that be?
I wonder if I was to get 2 of them to come out at the same time with me.
Who would they be?
It's worth a try. Yeah, if you don't ask, you don't get. So we give it a try. If it works, fantastic. Then we're off and
So
running.
who might you select, the 2 people to come out with you?
I might actually think of taking one from this site to another site and getting the 2 site managers together.
Okay.
On the basis, they do slightly different things. They should be communicating regularly, but I'm not sure what they are. So to actually do I suppose a reciprocal visit, we'll come down there today and then you come up here tomorrow.
And what difference might that make if you did that?
I think that seeing the reality, and again, let's ask questions about what we're doing, why we're doing, seeing the thing in progress. You might get a better understanding of, oh, okay, I thought I had a bad time, but now I see that you've got the same issues as me, but actually we've got the same issues. But I'm solving it like that, you're solving it like that. Why are we not talking to each other to get a shared solution?
Okay. I love that. So what are you going to call this project? What's the project name? You could call it a headline. Focus on helping top execs take responsibility and be more accountable. Project what?
Yeah. Now the cynic in me would say Mission Impossible.
So what would the other person in you, other part of you, not the cynic, the other more positive?
Let's interesting
Project
question.
what?
Just do it.
Project Just Do It. Nice. So what I'm impressed with, Graham, is, this desire to have a real impact on your senior execs and have a real impact on the culture. And, you're really starting at the right place in terms of doing this, because people see that behaviour, and that can rub off when we're modelling it to others. So thank you very much and for volunteering for this demonstration today. So what's been most useful?
I think probably your positive feedback that some of the things I'm doing are good. Keep working
Yeah.
on them,
Yeah.
and that is very important. It's something I try and do is to focus. If people are doing a good job, tell them they're doing a good job.
Mm.
Then if you then got to do a shit sandwich, at least you've got some good there. So I think your feedback that actually, you said what you're doing at the moment seems to be in the right direction, makes
Yeah.
me think, okay, it's working. Let's keep practice makes perfect.
Exactly. Yeah.
You haven't said once, no, that's not going to work, or you're doing it wrong, which
No.
to me is okay. Maybe I'm doing a bit better. Maybe there's a bit of self doubt, and that positivity is go, no, I'm being a bit hard. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Graham. You can sit back now. You've done the hard work. I'm going to bring everyone back. So bring your videos back on. And before we debrief what happened, I just want you to compliment Graham. What impressed you about how Graham is tackling, managing this project Just Do It already? What impressed you? Just put it in the chat. What impressed you about what you heard from how Graham showed up for this conversation and what he's doing that's already working? He is cool and calm under pressure, Roscoe said. Modelling, yes. Getting out of his comfort zone, open and eager to improve things. Yes, there was that strong desire. He wanted something to be different. Yeah. Lucy said, Graham, you are having conversations that are helping. You're exact. And the level of authenticity that Len noticed. Lovely. So let's debrief. What did you notice when you look at the quadrant? Yeah. Where were the circles? Where was I on that quadrant? And everyone can come off mute for this so we have a bit more free flowing conversation. Where was I? Where did you track me on that quadrant?
Predominantly in the ones and twos.
Yeah. Most of the time I was up on ones and twos. Yeah. I made a decision not to spend too much time in the preferred future, quadrant one, just because of our time. But if I was doing this in a normal coaching conversation, I would have spent a lot more time in unpacking how would he know that, he'd achieved this? What would this look like in concrete detail? So there was a bit of a challenge here for me, because Graham presented this as something he wanted others to do. And when you're coaching people, it's hard to coach that, because I wanted to coach Graham to take responsibility for doing that. So I had to keep circling back to bring it back to what he could do about it and what has he already done that's worked as well. So anyone see me in any other quadrant than quadrant 1 and 2? No? What else
You
did you
did
Okay.
go into the little problem past in order to get the context, which
Yes.
I think was really important. The other thing you did was you showed that, just a little one increment or two. You weren't saying, well, to get to 10, what do you
That's
need
right.
to do, Graham? Because
That's right.
obviously there's a lot of small incremental steps that can, like you described, Graham, just maybe even just the site managers talking to each other and forming that sort of bond in a way and helping each other would be a small step, but that would make both of those guys. So it's really good that because I know that's something you've taught us in mentoring. You say to people, well, what does success look like? And if if you're now a 7, what makes you a 9? But you were very incremental in your small steps. So it didn't feel like because it already felt like quite a lot to do, I think, for Graham. So that was kind of giving him which I thought was really good.
And that's a really good point, Kate, that you make. Where you get the biggest bang for your buck is being very clear what the end point is thereafter. So he wants the senior exec to take more responsibility and agree to actions. Again, I could have unpacked that in concrete detail. But the next small step is the other big bang for your buck. People don't change by giant leaps. They change through very, very small steps. And you just want to kickstart them to take the first one. You may have noticed I asked a scaling question. Yeah, where all execs are taking responsibility and being accountable. Where are you now? Where one is no evidence of that. And see how I've described each end of the scale. And he said a 4 or a 5. And I said then, how come you're a 4 or a 5? I didn't go, how come you're not a 10? I unpacked the positive difference of what gets him to a 4 or a 5, not what's missing. And then, as Kate said, I only took him 1 point up the scale. And I said, what would be a sign that you're making progress on this? And then it was, what's your small step that you're going to take in the next 48 hours? And we generally only want one, because generally that's hard. We want to make it easy for people to take that step.
I think it was.
Go on, Matt.
I think also, you know, it was the series of questions that you asked that raised the level of engagement for Graham and provided the focus. So it almost you build a framework around the questions to deal with the issue that he having to deal with. I think that was a really cool thing. And I think also the language and the succinctness in the summary gave him a level of affirmation that he was heading in the right direction.
Yeah. So what words did you notice? When we go back to the topic of today, the power of using the coachee or client's language. So how did you notice that? What was I doing? How I was selecting his language? Did you notice that at all?
It was the nature of the question that you're asking. I think the fact is that it was about what and why, but not how. You know.
Actually, the other way around. So it was about how, was about what, and it's not about why. So I never said why is it? Got it. We skip over why, because why tends to make people defensive. Yeah. So what I did, the technique I used is called listen, select, build. So I listened for what he was saying. I selected out some of the words and I added a question to it. And I was selecting out the things that were descriptions of what he wants, not what he doesn't want. Whenever he spoke about anything he doesn't want, I don't want silos, I just let it go through to the keeper. And I would reverse it to, I didn't do it this time, but sometimes I say, so you don't want silos, what is it you do want? So I'm still using his language, but I'm not delving into unpack, which would have been quadrant 3, which is problem past. So we skip over quadrant 3 and 4, which is problem past. We don't need to find the root cause of why this is. We want to find where he's asking for this, because look where he is. He's halfway along the scale. So there is 2 or 3 people who are actually, or 1 or 2 people he said, that are naturally doing it. So we want to build on that. And he's already had success on walking around with others.
Yeah, I just have a question, Annette,
Sure.
just a quick one. So when do you use the 3 and 4 quadrant? Up to what extent of the conversation can be used?
Great question. So what happens is people will default to those. Even though you're asking solution-focused questions, often they want to go back to describing the root cause of the problem and that. We're not problem phobic, but we just don't ask too many questions here. So if they keep giving us the problem, we will say to them, so how have you coped? Yeah, what's helped you cope with this problem? Or the days it's been a tiny bit better, how have you done that? So I've immediately taken him to quadrant 2. Or I'll say to people, so it sounds like that's not a great place to be in. What is it you want instead? And I've taken him up to quadrant 1. Is that making sense? Yeah. So this quadrant is this map is a way you can navigate conversations, because people normally default negative and default problem, and they want to tell you all the ins and outs. So you don't want to ignore it totally. Give them a little bit of time to describe it, and then we switch them. So what do you want instead? What would tell you you're making progress on this? And I've immediately taken him to quadrant 1. Yeah. So, any other observations, questions, queries around this approach? Charlie.
I think I misinterpreted the preferred future. So I had 4 dots below the line. So 1 in unwanted, 1 in 1, 3 in 3, 7 in 2, and then 10 in preferred future. So could you please explain the difference between 1 and 2? Because I had the bulk of the questions up there, but I just wasn't quite sure of the difference.
Yeah. So if we say preferred future, quadrant 1, it's really about what is wanted and what would that look like in concrete detail if you had that. So that's the 10 out of 10 is quadrant 1. Yep. Quadrant 2 is, has there been any hints of that in your past that's worked? Because he gave me, when I said, where are you on the scale? He said, I'm a 4 or 5. And I said, what gets you that high? What is happening? He said, 1 or 2 people do it naturally. And what I've done is gone for a walk. Yeah. And so that's quadrant 2. Is that making sense now?
Yeah.
Yep. So quadrant 2 is, what have you done already up until now that's worked? And quadrant 1 is, let's get crystal clear on where are you heading and how will you know you've arrived at what, if accountability or just do it with big tick, you've done that, how would you know? What would be some signs that you've done it? Yeah. What would be in place? What would you be noticing? Is that making sense now?
Yes, sorry, I was just making notes, that's all.
That's okay. Any other questions, comments, queries, or comments around what you've observed today? And you're allowed to speak, Graham, if you want to. What have you noticed that worked?
I think for me, there was a strong focus on the individual. Graham was in front of you, and Graham was clearly I was going to say the target, the person with whom you were engaging. What do you see? What does it look like for you? And it elicits you to stop and think and consider what steps you would take. So I could see myself asking those questions of my team to come back to this situation I was talking about. It's applicable to pretty much any of those options that you showed earlier. So
Awesome. Yes, the focus is on the individual, and the difference that makes is Graham knows is really clear, what have I got to go away and do? Yep. I can't shadow him each day going, come on, you said you're going to do this, you know, come on, do this. No, he's got to take responsibility. So it's interesting. What I modeled with Graham is what he's wanting from his senior execs. Isn't that funny? And 9 times out of 10, that happens in coaching conversations. Yeah. You've got an opportunity to model it. Yeah, the actual topic that they're talking about. And it happens synchronicity. It's so weird that it happens in that way.
But you're also very positive about it. There's no judgment.
Yeah.
You know, well, why didn't you do that more often? You know, why don't you go more often to take for a walk, Graham? Because that's obviously working. Do you know what I mean? It's just that language of being really positive about what he was doing and how he could improve for the future. And I think that's really important, that you're not, because you're right, human nature is such that everybody reverts back to the problems. It's always, well, I don't go for a walk because I'm too busy doing reports, you know, that kind of thing. And it just goes in this circle of sort of negativity, really. So it's the positive piece is really important.
That's right. Yeah. And we want people to make progress through the interaction. And look how short it was. It's 10 minutes. Yeah. And he's made progress. And Graham noticed it at the end when I complimented him. Yeah. So we want to find a way to affirm, compliment people of what are they already doing that's working. Yeah. Or I said to Graham, you know, I'm impressed with, you know, you really want to change the culture and make a difference in this, on this work site or in this organization. So notice that, because that builds people's confidence as well when they're getting noticed for what they're already done. So I realize we're a minute to go, and I just want to show you a couple of other slides quickly before we finish off. And if you can hang around for another few minutes, that would be even better. So what I've done, I've stayed on this side. What's wanted, what's working. It's about progress. It's about collaboration, finding his strengths already. It's relatively simple, and it's about him taking actions. Whereas the problem-focused side is all about finding out what's wrong, what needs fixing. And in safety roles, we could easily default to problem focus. Yeah? But that doesn't help people take accountability of being a partner in the change, whereas the solution-focused side does. So I wanted to mention my next, it used to be called Leader as Coach. It's now called Foundations, and it's about how do you have solution-focused conversation. And my next online program starts in July and goes over 4 modules. This is also something that I do for organizations, in-house programs. But I wanted to mention the end of financial year discount. There is a discount of $200 if you sign up before the 30th of June. So it ends up being $9.95. So I've kept last year's rates, but you would have to use that code to be able to receive that discount. If you're not sure where to start, I would love to have a conversation with you about it. In this foundation programs, you get very good at the quadrant and the solution focused tools. And you notice me use the scale, and you notice me affirm, and the small actions. I used some of those. So we build these tools into this way of having conversations in quadrant 1 and 2. And you learn the 3 elements. So it's a really practical program. So why do this? And I think why I've called it Foundations, it's foundational to any good conversation, particularly being more coach-like. And what you get to do is learn in action. So I do what I did today, demonstrate it, then you have a practice at it. So you learn and get very proficient at having solution-focused way of having conversations, which is key for leadership going forward. And everything I'm reading about leadership is we want to develop wise leadership. But to do that, you've got to collaborate well with others. And this program gives you the tools for that. And I think most of you are already on my newsletter list. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming along. Really appreciated it, your questions, but also thank you, Graham, for being the guinea pig today. Let me coach you in front of everyone. So please reach out if I can support you in any way in terms of learning these skills of coaching. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Annette.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good luck,
everybody.
Graham.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
Graham.
Well done for being the guinea pig.
Thanks, guys.